The smell of scorched wiring never left the ship, no matter how many decks they sealed or how many vents they forced open to let the stink bleed into space. It clung to the metal the way fear clung to a throat. Revan stood where the hangar's great mouth yawned to the stars, watching salvage craft drift among the distant flecks of wreckage. A planet's broken ring glittered in the darkness, shards of ships, shards of lives, the last glitter of the Mandalorian crusade thrown into the void and left to spin like a verdict. Behind him, the war went on in quieter forms. Men and women with haunted eyes dragged crates of ration packs and blaster cells. A pair of engineers coaxed a scorched droid back to life with prayer-like murmurs and careful hands. A young acolyte, fresh from a line of terrified recruits gathered out of liberated prison blocks, knelt to polish blood from a captured Mandalorian helm as if the shine could turn slaughter into ceremony. Revan listened to it all with the same stillness he offered the stars. The Force moved through the hangar like a draft through a ruined hall, carrying whispers too small to name. Every death left a residue. Every choice left a taste. He had made too many choices to pretend he did not know their flavor. Malak came to his side, heavy boots ringing like a challenge on the Durasteel deck. The tall Sith, once a broad-shouldered Jedi whose laughter had filled mess halls, were silenced now like another piece of armor. The lower half of his face was exposed, scarred and hungry. Where the war had taken his jaw, dark metal had replaced it, a cruel hinge of necessity that looked like a crown hammered into flesh. "They're still pulling bodies out," Malak said. His voice had the rasp of someone who had screamed too much and slept too little. "Mandalorians, ours, Republic. It all looks the same when it's burned." "It never looks the same," Revan answered. The words were soft, but they carried. Only to those who need it to. Malak's breath steamed faintly. "And what do you need?" Revan did not turn his masked face. The mask was ancient, expressionless, a story told in bone-white curves and a narrow mouth that never smiled. It gave him a kind of mercy. No one could accuse it of delight. "Order," he said at last. "A galaxy that does not stagger from one war into the next like a drunk bleeding in the snow." Malak barked a short laugh that wasn't amusement. "Order, that's what you call it." Revan's gloved hand rested on the rail. Beyond the hangar's threshold, a salvage tug reeled in a twisted strip of hull plating. The plating bore the scorched insignia of the Republic, wings and circle, and the mark looked less like a symbol and more like a wound. "The Republic couldn't end the Mandalorians," Malak went on. "The Jedi wouldn't. You did. We did. If the galaxy wants a shepherd, it will have to accept a wolf." Ding. The phrase was crude enough to belong to a tavern, not a fleet command. Yet Malak said it like doctrine, like an oath. Revan finally turned his head. The mask met Malak's bare stare. The force between them tightened. An invisible rope pulled too taut. Malak had always been blunt, always eager to bite down on the world and drag it where he wanted. Revan had once admired that ferocity. Now he saw it the way one saw a blade left too close to a child. "We are not wolves," Revan said. Malak's lips curled. "Then what are we?" Revan's gaze drifted past him to the kneeling acolyte polishing the Mandalorian helm. The acolyte's hands shook. He was no older than the Padawans Revan had once trained alongside. The boy looked up, just once, and his eyes found Revan's mask with the desperate hunger of someone searching for a father in a storm. Then he looked away, ashamed of needing anything. Revan felt something inside him shift. Not pity, not softness. Something colder, sharper, resolve. "We are the ones who do what must be done," he said. "Not what feels good." Malak's eyes burned. "And who decides what must be done?" Revan looked back to the stars. "Those who can bear the cost." For a moment, Malak said nothing. The hangar's noises filled the space between them. The scrape of metal, the hum of repulsors, the distant throb of the ship's bruised engines. Then Malak leaned closer, so close Revan could hear the faint whine of servos in the metal jaw. "You're still hiding things," Malak murmured. The Force twitched. A dangerous thing to say. Dangerous because it was true enough to cut. Revan's voice did not change. "I keep counsel," he said. Malak's gaze burned. "From me." "You," Revan said, and his mask turned just slightly, "have never been fond of counsel. You prefer conquest." Malak straightened, towering. "Conquest wins wars. Conquest starts them," Revan replied. Malak's hand flexed at his side, as if closing around an invisible throat. "You think you're above the Sith," he said. "You think because you wear a mask and speak softly, you can decide what the dark side is allowed to be." Revan did not flinch. "I think," he said, "that if we become only hunger, we will be devoured by something hungrier." Malak's eyes narrowed. "Something in the unknown regions," he said, and the way he said it made it an accusation. "You keep looking out there like you expect a ghost to climb aboard." Revan tasted the memory like ash. The cold pull at the edge of space, the sense of a presence older than the Republic, older than the Jedi's proud temples, patient as a tomb. He had felt it on the far rim of known maps, where hyperspace lanes frayed into rumor. He had not told Malak what he had seen. Not because he did not trust him, not entirely. Because Malak would answer fear with fire, and fire in the wrong place could burn the whole galaxy down. Revan said only, "The galaxy is larger than your anger." Malak's mouth tightened. "And your secrets." For a heartbeat, Revan considered saying more. He could have told Malak everything. The whispers in dead ruins, the star maps that pointed like accusing fingers into the dark, the sense that the Mandalorians had not invaded for glory alone. He could have told him that the war had been a test, a sharpening, that someone had been watching. Instead, he said, "Go make sure the fleet is ready. We leave within the hour." "No." Malak's stare held, stubborn and bright. Then he gave a shallow nod, too quick to be obedience, too controlled to be surrender, and turned away. His boots rang across the deck like hammer blows. The crew bowed their heads as he passed, not with love but with fear, and fear was a kind of loyalty all its own. Revan watched him go, and the Force tasted suddenly of iron. The chamber that had once belonged to a Republic captain now belonged to Revan. He had stripped it of its trophies and replaced them with silence. The walls still held the faint outline of a family holoframe that had been pried away, leaving a pale rectangle like a missing tooth. Revan did not mind the emptiness. Emptiness was honest. It did not pretend. He dismissed the guards at the door with a glance. Alone, he let his gloved hands hover over the holodable. The star map rose, a lattice of cold light and shifting lines. Hyperspace lanes glowed faintly. Worlds hovered like embers. Revan's mind moved through them faster than any nav computer. He saw supply chains, political fractures, the places where the Republic's pride had hardened into brittleness. He saw the Jedi temples, bright knots of light that pretended darkness could not reach them. He saw the Outer Rim, poor and raw, always the first to bleed when core world senators grew bored of peace. And beyond the edge of mapped lanes, he saw nothing, and that nothing pulled at him like gravity. He reached out with the Force, not to command but to listen. The dark side answered easily, a warm current that promised certainty. He could drown in it if he let himself. Many had. The Sith tombs on Korriban were full of men and women who had mistaken drowning for becoming an ocean. Revan did not want to drown. He wanted to cross. There had been a moment, out past the last familiar stars, when the Force had tasted wrong. Not simply dark, he had known darkness. This had been ancient, as if something had poured old blood into the currents of the galaxy and watched it spread. He had felt it again at Malachor V, when the mass shadow generator had screamed, and the planet had answered with a howl that tore a wound in the Force so deep it still ached. That wound had not closed. It had become a mouth, and mouths hungered. Revan's fingers traced a point on the map, a route that cut into the unknown regions. His fleet would follow it. Not for conquest. Not yet. For knowledge. For the weapon he needed. He turned his head at the faintest sound, the whisper of metal. The door slid open without a chime. Malak stepped inside. Revan did not turn fully. "I dismissed the guards," he said. "You dismissed the guards," Malak agreed, as if tasting the phrase. His eyes flicked over the star map. "Because you didn't want witnesses." Revan's hands remained over the holodeble. "Witnesses are for performances. And this," Malak said, coming closer. "Is what?" Revan let the map rotate. Lines extended into the black, reaching for nothing. "Planning," he said. Malak's gaze followed the lines. "You're taking us out there," he said. And there was something almost reverent in his voice. Then it curdled into accusation. "Without telling anyone why." Revan finally faced him. "If I tell everyone," he said, "someone will misunderstand. Someone will panic. Someone will run to the Republic with tales of monsters in the dark. And then the Republic will do what it always does, argue until the monster reaches their door." Malak's metal jaw clicked. "So, instead you drag us after you, like obedient dogs." Revan's eyes narrowed. "Do you feel dragged?" he asked. Malak's lips parted, and for a fraction of a second the old camaraderie flashed. The two of them on the bridge of a warship, laughing as Mandalorian fighters burned, believing they were saving the galaxy. Then the moment died, smothered by everything that had happened since. "I feel," Malak said, "that you've forgotten what being Sith means." Revan did not smile. "Enlighten me." Malak's posture straightened as if he stood before a tribunal. "It means taking what is yours," he said. "It means power. It means not pretending you're still a Jedi with blood on his hands for charity." Gandana. Revan stepped closer until the space between them was a blade's width. "It means," he said quietly, "not being ruled by your own appetites." Malak's eyes flared. "You speak like a council master." Revan's voice hardened. "And you speak like a child who found a sword." Malak's hand twitched toward his lightsaber. He did not draw it, but the desire was there, vivid as heat. Revan lifted a hand, not in surrender, but in a gesture that stilled the air. The holomap dimmed as if cowed. "You want a war between us," he said. Malak's eyes burned. "I want clarity." "You want a throne," Revan replied. Malak's face tightened. "And you want to pretend you don't." Revan's silence answered. In that silence, Malak saw something, or thought he did. Suspicion sharpened into certainty. "You think you can use me," he said. "You think because I followed you once, I will follow you forever. But I am not your shadow, Revan." There it was, his name spoken without title, intimate and furious. Revan's eyes did not leave Malak's. "Then stand in the light," he said. "But do not mistake the light for warmth." Malak's breath came harder. The metal jaw's servos whined faintly with each tensioned movement. "If you lead us into nothing," he said, "I will not let you waste what we've built." "What we've built," Revan echoed, and his tone turned colder, "is barely a skeleton. The Republic still stands. The Jedi still stand. And out there," he gestured to the dark, beyond the map's edge, "out there is something that will swallow them all if we do not become something stronger." Malak's eyes gleamed. "So you finally admit it," he said. "You're afraid." Revan's gaze sharpened. "Yes," he said. "I am afraid, and because I am afraid, I will not be foolish." Malak's eyes narrowed. "Fear is weakness. Fear is information," Revan replied. "It tells you where you are blind." Malak's jaw clenched. "You were never like this," he said. "Before Malachor, before you started listening to ghosts." Revan's voice softened, just slightly. "Before Malachor," he said, "we believed we could win one war and be done. Malachor taught me the galaxy does not end wars, it feeds them." Malak took a step back, as if the words had struck him. Then his expression hardened again, armor snapping into place. "Then let it feed," he said. "Let it feed on the Republic. Let it feed on the Jedi. Let it feed until there is only us." Revan watched him, and something in him grieved. Not for the Republic, not for the Jedi, but for the friend he had once had. "You don't understand," Revan said. Malak's smile was a flash of teeth. "I understand perfectly," he said. "You think you're saving the galaxy. I think you're saving your conscience." He turned toward the door. Revan let him go. Stopping him would have been easy. Persuading him would have been harder. Revan's gaze fell back to the map, to the black beyond the lanes. In the Force, he felt Malak's anger trail away like smoke. Underneath it, something else stirred. Ambition, yes, but also fear. A fear Malak would never admit. A fear that would make him dangerous. Revan dimmed the holomap until the chamber held only candlelight and shadow. He stood there a long time, listening to the ship's bones creak and to the galaxy's vast, patient hunger. The fleet slipped into hyperspace like a dagger sliding between ribs. Stars stretched into pale lines, then collapsed, and the universe became a tunnel of blue-white light that hummed against the hull. Inside the command deck, the light painted everyone's faces the color of drowned bones. Revan stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, as if the ship were a courtroom and he a judge listening to testimony. Around him, captains murmured reports. Supplies. Fuel. Die. Crew morale. Casualty lists that grew shorter as officers learned Revan did not tolerate theatrics about death. The dead were gone. The living had work. Malak lingered near the edge, too restless to stand still, too proud to seem eager. He spoke rarely, but his silence was not calm. It was a blade held just out of sight. They dropped from hyperspace into a region of space that looked bruised. A red nebula spilled across the void, thick as smoke. It turned starlight into rust and made the fleet's hulls look as if they had been dipped in blood. An officer, a pale man with a scar that split his eyebrow, swallowed hard. "Unknown coordinates confirmed," he said. "Navigation is unstable. Hyperlanes are thin." "Nungi." "Now." Revan nodded once. "We proceed." The officer hesitated. "My lord," he said, and the title sounded strange on his tongue. "There are no established charts. If we—" Revan's head turned. The mask's empty gaze fell on the officer like a verdict. "If we what?" The officer's throat worked. "If we miscalculate," he finished. "We could drift for years." Revan stepped closer. The man's eyes darted to Malak, as if hoping the apprentice might soften the master. Malak did not. His expression was almost pleased. Revan's voice was quiet. "Then we will not miscalculate," he said. The officer bowed his head. "Yes, my lord." The bridge resumed its murmurs, quieter now. Malak moved closer until he stood beside Revan again. "They fear the dark," he said as if tasting contempt. "They fear the unknown," Revan corrected. "It's the same," Malak said. Revan did not answer. Beyond the viewport, the red nebula pulsed slowly, like a living thing breathing. Revan felt the force shifting, currents changing in ways that made his skin prickle beneath his robes. It was as if the galaxy's familiar song had slipped into a different key. Days passed in a rhythm of hyperspace jumps and sensor sweeps. They found dead rocks, half-formed stars, regions where gravity twisted strange. They found derelicts, ships older than the Republic, silent and hollow, their hulls marked with symbols that made even hardened Sith officers go pale. Revan did not linger. He memorized the markings and moved on. At night, if night meant anything in a ship that measured time by duty cycles, Revan walked the corridors alone. Crew members stepped out of his path, heads bowed. Some did it from fear. Some did it from devotion. Devotion was more dangerous. It asked for reward. In the mess halls, he heard whispers. Not of rebellion. Not yet. of myth. The Sith were creatures of story as much as doctrine. They needed legends, the way soldiers needed rations. Revan heard his own name spoken like a prayer, like a curse, like a promise. He heard Malak's name too, spoken differently, with excitement, with hunger. On the 7th day, the sensors screamed. An alarm pulsed through the ship, low and urgent. Officers snapped into motion. Revan returned to the bridge, cloak trailing like shadow. "Report," he said. A navigator's hands flew over controls. "Gravity well ahead," she said, voice tight. "Not natural. It's shaped like a net." Revan's gaze locked on the holoscreen. A faint distortion shimmered in space, barely visible, like heat haze over stone. It lay across their path, delicate and deadly. "A trap," Malak said, and his voice carried relish. "Something out here hunts." Revan's fingers tightened behind his back. "Not a trap," he said. "A warning." "A warning from whom?" Malak demanded. Revan did not answer. He felt it now, clearer than before. An ancient presence behind the distortion, not watching with eyes but with something colder. Curiosity. Assessment. As if a beast had lifted its head and sniffed the air. The fleet slowed. Ships adjusted course, sliding along the edge of the distortion. The air on the bridge seemed to thicken, as if space itself pressed close. An officer whispered, "The Force feels wrong." Revan heard him. He did not rebuke him. The man was right. They passed the distortion without incident. The sensors quieted, but the silence felt like the pause before a blade fell. Malak leaned in. "You knew it was there," he said. Revan's mask turned toward him. "I suspected," he said. Malak's eyes narrowed. "And you didn't tell me." Revan's voice was a whisper only Malak could hear. "If you had known," he said, "you would have charged it." Malak's metal jaw clicked. "And if I had," he said, "we would know what it is." Revan's gaze held. "Some knowledge costs too much." Malak's expression twisted. "You're afraid again," he said. Revan did not deny it. He looked back to the void, where the red nebula's light bled into darkness, and the darkness seemed to look back. The world had no name on any Republic chart. It was a cold moon circling a gas giant, the color of bruised jade. Its surface was a wilderness of black stone and thin, bitter wind. They landed at dusk, though dusk here was only a dimming of the already weak light. The shuttle's ramp dropped with a hiss, releasing heat and breath into the cold. Revan stepped down first, boots crunching on frost-hardened dust. Malak followed, and behind them came a small escort, troopers in dark armor, a pair of engineers, and a nervous archaeologist Revan had taken from a captured Republic outpost. The man's name was long and forgettable. Revan did not bother to learn it. The man was a tool, and tools did not need names. The ruins rose ahead like broken teeth. Stone monoliths leaned at odd angles, their surfaces carved with spiraling runes that seemed to shift if stared at too long. The air tasted of minerals and something faintly metallic, as if the planet itself bled. The archaeologist's voice shook. "Rakata," he whispered. "This is Rakatan's script." Malak scoffed. "The Republic tells campfire stories about them," he said. "An empire that ruled the stars with monsters and slaves." "They weren't stories," Revan said. Malak's eyes flashed. "You knew?" he said again. Revan ignored him, moving toward the largest monolith. At its base lay a pedestal of dark stone. A shallow depression waited at its center, as if designed to cradle something. Revan removed a small artifact from his cloak, a shard of crystal etched with the same runes. He had taken it from another ruin weeks ago, following a trail that felt less like discovery and more like being led. He placed the shard into the depression. The pedestal flared to life. Light erupted upward, forming a three-dimensional map, stars and lines, and shifting symbols. The display was older than the Republic, older than the Jedi's proud archives, and yet it moved with a fluid grace as if it had been built yesterday. It showed hyperspace routes that did not exist anymore, paths that had been cut by ships that sailed the void when the Republic was still a dream. The archaeologist gasped. "A star map," he breathed. "By the Force." Malak stepped closer, eyes alight. "Now we're talking," he said. Revan studied the map. The ruins shifted, rearranging, responding to his presence like a beast scenting its master. He reached out with the Force, not touching but coaxing. The map rotated, focusing on a cluster of stars far beyond the Republic's familiar lanes. One point pulsed faintly, like a heart. Revan felt his pulse answer. The archaeologist leaned forward, unable to help himself. That coordinate," he said. "It's beyond the outer rim, beyond everything." Revan's voice was quiet. "Yes," he said. Malak's grin widened. "At last," he murmured. The map flickered. For a moment, something appeared behind it, a shadow that did not belong to the projection. A shape like a tall figure, indistinct, as if watching through water. Revan's skin prickled. He froze. Malak did not notice. Or if he did, he dismissed it. "This is what you've been chasing," he said, voice thick with satisfaction. "A weapon, a secret. Whatever is out there, it belongs to us." Revan's gaze remained fixed on the pulsing coordinate. "Not a weapon," he said. "A forge." Malak blinked. "A forge." Revan nodded. "A place that can build ships faster than any shipyard. A place that can give us a fleet the Republic cannot match." "Nah, Peshe." The words tasted bitter. He could feel the dark side stir at the thought. Power, dominance, certainty. It offered him the galaxy on a chain. Malak's eyes gleamed. "Then why wait?" he demanded. "Why all this secrecy? We take it. We use it. We crush the Republic before they even know we exist." Revan turned to him. "And then what?" he asked. Malak spread his hands. "Then we rule," he said, as if the answer were obvious. Revan's voice sharpened. "Rule what?" he asked. "A galaxy burned to ash because you rushed. A galaxy that will collapse the moment you take your hand off its throat? Nah. Toon. Oh." Malak's face darkened. "You still talk like a Jedi," he snarled. Revan stepped closer, the cold wind tugging at his cloak. "I talk like someone who has seen what happens when power is taken without plan," he said. "The Mandalorians were not stopped by strength alone. They were stopped because we understood them. We knew where they would strike. We knew what they wanted." Malak's jaw clicked. "They wanted glory. They wanted direction," Revan corrected, and his voice turned colder. "They were pointed at the Republic like a spear. Someone threw them. Someone watched us fight them. Someone learned." The archaeologist looked between them, confused and terrified. Malak's eyes narrowed. "You keep saying someone," he said. "Who?" Revan stared at the pulsing coordinate. In his mind, he saw the shadow again behind the star map, tall and patient. He could not name it. Names gave comfort. This thing did not deserve comfort. "Not yet," Revan said. Malak's expression twisted into fury. "Always not yet," he snapped. "Always later. Always secrets." Revan's mask turned toward him. "If you cannot accept that," he said, "then you cannot be trusted with what comes next." The words hung between them like a drawn blade. For a heartbeat, Malak looked as if he might strike. The troopers shifted, hands hovering near blasters. The wind moaned through the ruins like a chorus of ghosts. Then Malak smiled. It was slow, controlled, and did not reach his eyes. "Of course," he said smoothly. "I trust you." Revan felt the lie like a stain in the Force. Malak turned away, cloak snapping behind him. "Set the coordinates," he called to the navigators. "We go to the forge." Revan watched him, and for the first time since the war ended, he felt something he had not allowed himself to feel. Not fear of the unknown. Fear of what stood beside him. Malak did not sleep. Sleep felt like surrender, and he had surrendered enough. Blood, flesh, the naive faith that the Jedi Order had been worth saving. He walked the corridors of his ship until the crew learned to step aside before he arrived, as if sensing the pressure of his anger through the walls. In the war room, he gathered those he trusted, not because they were loyal, but because they wanted what he wanted. Power. Certainty. A throne built from the galaxy's spine. The room had once been a Republic strategy chamber, its walls lined with clean displays and polished alloy. Malak had remade it. He tore down the Republic insignia and replaced it with Sith sigils painted in dark red, like old blood dried on stone. He lit the chamber with torches and low lamps, disdaining bright light. Bright light was for those who pretended there were no corners. Captains arrived one by one. Some were former Republic officers who had followed Revan's charisma into darkness. Some were Outer Rim warlords who had smelled opportunity. Some were Sith acolytes with eyes too bright and hands too eager. Malak watched them take their seats around the long table. They looked like lords at council, each with their own hunger, each calculating. A captain with braided hair and a scarred cheek leaned forward. "We have the coordinates," she said. "If the forge is real, it changes everything." "It's real," Malak said. Her eyes flicked. "You've seen it?" Not yet. Not with his eyes. But he had seen it with something deeper. In dreams, a vast machine of fire and light had called to him, promising ships, armies, worlds. The dark side did not whisper to him, it sang. Malak let the silence linger before he answered. "Revan has seen enough to believe," he said. "And that is all we need." A thin acolyte, barely more than bone wrapped in robes, tilted his head. "If the Master believes, why are we here?" he asked. "We follow." Malak's metal jaw clicked as he smiled. "Do we?" he asked softly. The room stilled. Torches crackled. A ship's distant engine hum vibrated through the floor like a heartbeat. Malak leaned forward, hands spread on the table. "Revan is brilliant," he said. "He led us to victory against the Mandalorians. He broke the Republic's will. He showed us the Jedi's weakness." Several captains nodded. Revan's reputation was a weapon, and they all had been cut by it. "But brilliance is not kingship," Malak continued. "Brilliance can hesitate. It can doubt. It can waste time listening to ghosts and omens while the galaxy waits for its new ruler." The captain with braided hair narrowed her eyes. "Careful," she said. "That sounds like heresy." Malak laughed quietly. "Heresy," he echoed. "We are Sith. We were born from heresy." A murmur ran around the table, uneasy, intrigued. Malak lifted a hand, and a small holoprojector flickered to life. A red image formed above the table, a circular structure of impossible scale, floating in darkness. Even as a crude projection, it looked like a cathedral built from machinery. Its inner ring glowed with pale fire. "The forge," Malak said. His voice softened as if speaking a lover's name. "Imagine what it will produce under a strong hand." A captain with heavy shoulders frowned. "Revan intends to use it," he said. "We will have our fleet." "In time," Malak agreed. "In time, after he has meditated and listened and decided which of us deserves to hold which scraps." The acolyte's eyes gleamed. "Are you saying he will deny us?" he asked. Malak's gaze swept the table. "I am saying," he said, "that he will make us servants to his vision. And his vision is not ours." The braided captain leaned back. "And what is your vision?" she asked, voice sharp. Malak did not flinch. "A Sith Empire," he said. "Not a masquerade. Not a republic wearing a new mask. A true empire that takes the core worlds and breaks the Jedi Order and rules without apology." "Now what?" Some faces brightened. Others tightened. Fear, desire, calculation, all of it swirled. "And you," the heavy-shouldered captain said slowly, "would lead it." Malak's smile was thin. "I would," he said. Silence followed. In that silence, Malak felt the weight of their thoughts. Some were already his. Some still clung to Revan. Revan's shadow lay across them all. "You want to challenge him," the braided captain said, and there was admiration in her tone despite herself. "Now." Malak's eyes narrowed. "Not yet," he said, mocking Revan's favorite phrase. "But soon, before he binds the forge to himself, before he turns this empire into a cage built from his secrets." The acolyte leaned forward. "The Sith way," he whispered. "Apprentice rises, master falls." Malak's jaw clicked. "The Sith way," he agreed. "But done properly. Not in a duel where he can outthink us. Not in a moment where he can turn us into pawns." He tapped the table, and the forge projection pulsed, red lights spilling over their faces like blood. "We choose the moment," Malak said. "We choose the battlefield. And when he falls, we move swiftly. No uncertainty. No hesitation. The fleet must accept a new master before it can grieve the old one." "Nah, Kandiawar." The braided captain's eyes glittered. "And if they don't?" she asked. Malak's smile widened, and for a moment he looked less like a man and more like something carved from hunger. "Then we remind them," he said. "What happens to those who doubt?" A hush fell. The torches seemed to dim, as if even flame listened. In the Force, Malak felt something stir. Approval, like a distant hand resting on his shoulder. The dark side answered his ambition with warmth. He thought of Revan's mask, expressionless and cold. He thought of Revan's secrets, locked behind that mask like treasure behind a vault door. Malak had once followed Revan into war because he believed in him. Now he followed only to learn where to sink the knife. And the forge waited, pulsing in the hologram like a heart that could belong to either of them, if one of them had the will to rip it free. The world the map led them to was green and savage. From orbit it looked like an emerald set in black velvet, its oceans dark and vast, its continents thick with jungle. Lightning crawled across storm clouds like pale veins. They descended through rain that battered the shuttle's hull like thrown stones. When the ramp dropped, heat rolled in, wet, heavy, full of the smell of vegetation and rot. The air tasted alive. Revan stepped onto black sand that stuck to his boots. Palm-like trees rose beyond the beach, their leaves wide as sails. Vines hung like ropes, swaying in the wind. Somewhere deep in the jungle, something screamed, an animal or something older. They were not alone. Figures emerged from the trees, silent as ghosts. They were humanoid but not human, tall, long-limbed, skin a dull gray-green. Their eyes were dark, their faces sharp. They carried spears tipped with jagged metal. Their armor was bone and woven fiber, decorated with shells and teeth. The Rakatan. Revan felt the force around them like a stagnant pool. These beings had once commanded the galaxy. Now they moved like shadows of a fallen house, reduced to guarding ruins on a forgotten world. Malak's hand hovered near his lightsaber. "Primitive," he muttered. The Rakatan leader stepped forward. He wore a crest of feathers and a collar of polished bone. He spoke in a harsh language, clicks and guttural tones. The archaeologist, shaking with fear and awe, whispered, "They're asking why we've come." Revan did not look at the man. He spoke in Rakatan, the words rough on his tongue but correct. The leader's eyes widened slightly. He answered, and the archaeologist translated anyway, unable to help himself. He says the sky fires belong to the ancestors," the man stammered. "That we cannot." Revan lifted his hand. The Rakatan leader's spear rose from his grip, floating, turning slowly in the air like a serpent. The Rakatan warriors hissed, stepping back, spears lifting. Sith troopers raised blasters. Revan's voice was calm. "We do not come to steal," he said in Rakatan. "We come to claim what was abandoned." The spear snapped back into the leader's hand, gently, as if returned by courtesy. The leader stared at Revan with something like fear, something like recognition. He spoke again, faster now. The archaeologist swallowed. "He says, 'There is a place,'" he translated. "A machine the ancestors made, a thing that feeds on the stars. It was forbidden. It brought ruin." Revan's pulse steadied. "Show me," he said. The leader hesitated. Then he motioned toward the jungle. They walked beneath the canopy, rain dripping in thick streams from leaves. The jungle swallowed sound, leaving only the wet crunch of footsteps and the distant calls of unseen beasts. The Rakata moved ahead with eerie grace, never slipping, never hesitating. They knew every route, every hidden pit. Malak watched them with contempt, but his eyes flicked constantly to the trees. Even he, for all his arrogance, could feel the weight of this place. The force here was not bright. It was old, like a stone stained by centuries of blood. They reached a clearing where a temple rose. Its stones were black and slick with rain, carved with the same spiraling runes Revan had seen on the moon. Vines crawled over it like veins. The entrance was a jagged mouth. The Rakata leader stopped. He spoke a single word, and several warriors approached the temple's threshold. They placed their hands on the stone and whispered. The air shivered. A faint blue light traced the runes, awakening. The temple door rumbled open. Inside, the air was cooler, dry. The walls glowed faintly with embedded crystals. The passage sloped downward, deeper into the earth. The Rakata leader hesitated at the entrance, as if afraid to step inside. He spoke to Revan, voice low. The archaeologist translated, trembling. He says, "The ancestors used the temple to reach the machine. They called it the Star Forge. They used it to build fleets. It made them kings. It also made them mad." Malak's lips curled. "Sounds like a good machine," he said. Revan ignored him. He stepped inside. The corridor led to a chamber where a pedestal stood, similar to the one on the moon but larger. Above it hovered a crystal, cracked but still humming with power. The runes around the pedestal glowed faintly. Revan approached. His fingers brushed the air above the pedestal. The force stirred, responding. Images flashed, a ring of metal in space, immense and terrible. Ships pouring from it like spawn. Rakata kneeling before it, eyes empty, then fire, ruin, darkness. Revan's breath caught. The vision faded, leaving him in the chamber with rainwater dripping from his cloak. Malak stepped beside him, impatient. "Well?" he demanded. Revan's voice was quiet. "It's real," he said. Malak's eyes gleamed. "Then open it," he said. "Open the path." Revan placed his hand on the pedestal. The runes flared bright. The air shimmered. A line of light shot upward, forming a star map like the one on the moon, but more detailed. It rotated, focusing on a point in space. The Rakata leader hissed, stepping back, as if the light burned him. The map showed a route, complex, twisting, like a serpent through hyperspace. Revan memorized it. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. Because beneath the map's light, in the corner of his mind, he felt that ancient presence stir again. Watching, waiting. Malak saw only the route, the promise. "We have it," he whispered. Revan turned to the Rakata leader. He spoke in Rakatan again, his voice firm. "You will not stop us," he said. The leader's shoulders sagged. He spoke softly, and the archaeologist's voice cracked as he translated. He says, "The ancestors couldn't stop themselves," the man whispered. "He says the forge doesn't belong to anyone. It owns them." Malak laughed, harsh and fearless. "Then we'll own it harder," he said. Revan looked at Malak, and the words that rose in him were not a prophecy, not a warning, but a simple truth. Some men could not be saved from their own hunger. The Star Forge did not announce itself with beauty. It was not a shining monument floating in perfect symmetry, like a Republic station designed to impress senators. It was a scar in space, a ring of dark metal and jagged spires, half hidden by debris and dust. It looked like something built by hands that did not care if the universe found it ugly. Approaching it felt like approaching a sleeping beast. The fleet held position at a cautious distance while Revan and Malak took a small shuttle forward, accompanied by only a handful of troopers and engineers. The shuttle's cockpit windows framed the forge as it grew larger, swallowing the stars behind it. The closer they came, the more Revan felt the force distort. The forge was not merely metal. It was hunger made architecture. It pulled at energy, at life, at the very currents of the galaxy. Malak leaned forward, eyes bright. "It's magnificent," he breathed. Revan said nothing. The shuttle docked at an ancient port, its seals engaging with a hiss of ancient mechanisms waking. The airlock opened, releasing a breath of stale heat and the faint smell of oil and old smoke. Inside, the corridors were vast, built for beings who had thought themselves gods. The walls were black metal etched with runes that glowed faintly like embers. The floor vibrated, not from engines, but from something deeper. An endless rhythm, like a giant heart beating in the dark. They walked through shadows. Their footsteps echoed, swallowed, then echoed again, as if the station remembered every sound and chose to repeat it. Automatons moved in the distance, tall, skeletal machines that glided along rails, carrying pieces of ships that looked half-formed. They did not speak. They did not look. They worked with tireless devotion, forge slaves that had outlived their masters. An engineer, hands trembling, whispered, "How is it still powered?" Revan felt Malak's gaze on him. He could have answered. He could have told them about the forge's connection to a nearby star, how it drew energy through ancient technology that bordered on sorcery. He could have told them about the dark side humming through the metal like blood through veins. Instead, he said, "It feeds. And let that be enough." They reached a central chamber that opened into an abyss. Bridges of black metal stretched over the void, connecting platforms like islands. Far below, molten light glowed, a sickly pale fire that illuminated moving machinery. Malak stepped onto the bridge without hesitation. "This is it," he said, voice full of awe. "This is what the Republic never understood. Power that doesn't depend on politics. Power that doesn't beg." Revan followed, slower. Each step felt like walking over a throat. At the far platform, a console rose, alien, carved with runes and embedded crystals. Revan approached, placing his gloved hand on the surface. The forge answered. Light surged. The station's hum deepened. The air grew warmer, as if a furnace had been stoked. In Revan's mind, images flashed again. Ships pouring out, fleets blotting stars, worlds kneeling. Then another image, sharper. A shadow behind the ships, a presence using them as tools. Revan's hand tightened on the console. Malak stood beside him, breath quick. "Can you control it?" he demanded. Revan's voice was low. "Not like this," he said. It requires alignment." Malak scoffed. "Rakata rituals," he said. "Spare me." "It requires the Force," Revan corrected. Malak's eyes narrowed. "Then we use the Force," he said simply. Revan turned his masked face toward him. "The Forge will amplify whatever we feed it," he said. "Not just power, desire, hunger, rage." Malak's smile was sharp. "Good," he said. "Then it will produce enough to drown the Republic." Revan held his gaze. "And if it produces enough to drown us?" he asked. Malak's jaw clicked. "You doubt again," he said. Revan's voice softened, though it remained firm. I respect, he said. There is a difference. Malak stepped closer to the console, fingers brushing the runes. His eyes half-lidded, as if listening to a song only he could hear. The dark side swirled around him eagerly, like a lover rushing into his arms. Revan felt it. He felt the forge respond to Malak's touch, brightening slightly, like a beast tasting blood. Revan's stomach tightened. "Don't," he said. Malak looked at him, surprised, then amused. "Afraid I'll steal your toy?" he asked. Revan's voice sharpened. "Afraid you'll wake it," he said. Malak laughed softly. "It's already awake," he said. "And it wants us." Revan's gaze drifted to the abyss below where the pale firelight pulsed. He could feel the station's hunger pressing against him, inviting him to give in. He had resisted many temptations. This one was different. This one did not offer pleasure. It offered inevitability. He pulled his hand from the console. The light dimmed slightly, though the hum remained, patient. "We will not activate full production yet," Revan said. Malak's eyes flared. "Why?" he snapped. Revan's voice was iron. "Because we need control," he said. "We need discipline. We need to understand what we are binding ourselves to." Malak's jaw clicked hard. "And while we study," he said, "the Republic gathers strength. The Jedi gather strength. We waste time." Revan turned away, scanning the chamber. The runes on the walls seemed to watch. "Time," he said, "is not wasted when it prevents ruin." Malak's laugh was bitter. "Ruin," he echoed. "You sound like those Rakata, cowering from their own power." Revan's mask tilted slightly. "The Rakata ruled the galaxy," he said. "And then they fell. That should interest you." Malak's eyes narrowed. "It interests me," he said, "because it means there was weakness. And I am not weak." "Nah." Revan stared at him, and in that moment he understood. Malak did not fear the Forge's hunger because Malak believed he could out-hunger it. He believed he could bite down harder than the beast. Revan could not decide whether that arrogance was courage or stupidity. Perhaps the Sith were built from both. He turned back to the console, forcing himself to memorize every rune, every mechanism. He would need them. He would need to bind this station to his will, not for conquest alone, but for what came after. Because somewhere in the void beyond this metal cathedral, something ancient was listening to the Forge's awakening like a man listening to the sharpening of knives. They returned to known space not with trumpets, but with a weapon hidden under their cloaks. The Forge remained in the dark waiting, while Revan moved his pieces across the board. Korriban became their anvil. The planet's red deserts and jagged tombs suited what Revan needed, a place where the Sith could grow without the Republic's eyes watching too closely. The Academy rose like a fortress of old stone, its halls echoing with footsteps and whispered vows. Revan walked those halls like a ghost, his presence turning conversations into silence. Acolytes bowed. Some trembled. Some stared with dangerous adoration. He watched them train, watched them fight with sabers and with fists, watched them learn the dark side's easy cruelty. He did not intervene often. When he did, it was not with anger but with precision. A correction here, a warning there. He built them like weapons, but he wanted weapons with handles, tools that could be wielded without cutting the hand that held them. Malak did not share that patience. In the tomb chamber, where ancient Sith statues loomed like stone kings, Malak watched the kneeling acolytes with a predator's satisfaction. The red braziers lit his metal jaw in harsh gleam. His eyes tracked weakness the way a hawk tracked a mouse. Revan stood before the acolytes, cloak hanging heavy, hands clasped. His lightsaber remained unlit at his side. "Power is not rage," Revan said, voice carrying through the stone chamber. "Rage is fuel. Fuel without a vessel is fire that burns its own house." An acolyte, young, scarred, hungry, lifted his head. "Then what is power?" he demanded. Revan's mask turned toward him. "Power," he said, "is choice." A ripple of confusion moved through the kneeling line. Sith teachings promised domination, not philosophy. Revan's doctrine felt wrong to them, and that wrongness drew their attention. Malak's laugh cut through the chamber. "Choice?" he echoed. "Tell them the truth. Power is taking what you want." Revan did not turn to him. "Taking what you want," he said, "is easy when you want small things. A throne, a ship, a world." Malak stepped forward from the shadow, boots crunching on sand that had blown into the tomb. "And you want something bigger," he said. "So you dress it up in pretty words?" Revan faced him now. The acolytes watched, breath held, as if witnessing a duel without blades. "I want the galaxy alive," Revan said. Malak's eyes narrowed. "Alive," he said, tasting skepticism. "So it can kneel. So it can fight," Revan replied. "When the time comes." Malak's jaw clicked. "Always your mysteries," he said. "Always the time comes." Revan's voice softened, but it did not weaken. "You felt it," he said. "Out there. The wrongness." Malak's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then it hardened. "I felt opportunity," he said. "I felt a forge that can give us ships faster than the Republic can build them. I felt victory." Revan's gaze held. "And you didn't feel the hunger," he said. Malak's smile was cold. "I felt it," he said. "And I liked it." The acolytes murmured, eager. Hunger was familiar. Hunger was simple. Revan turned back to them. "Listen," he said. "If you feed the forge without discipline, it will feed you lies. It will give you ships, yes. It will also give you ruin." An acolyte's voice trembled with excitement. "Ruin for the Republic," he said. Revan's mask tilted slightly. "Ruin for anyone," he corrected. "Including you." Malak snorted. "Fear," he said loudly, and the word rolled through the chamber like a thrown rock. "He offers you fear. The Jedi offered you fear too. They told you the dark side would consume you. They told you to kneel to restraint and call it virtue." He stepped closer to the kneeling acolytes. "I tell you this," Malak said. "The dark side is yours. Take it. Let it consume you if it must, because consumption is strength. Better to burn bright and rule than to whisper and hesitate." Several acolytes' eyes lit up. They leaned toward Malak like flowers toward sun. Revan watched it happen with a cold, sinking certainty. Malak did not need to recruit with promises. He recruited with permission. Permission to be what they already wanted to be. Revan raised a hand. The air thickened. The brazier's flames bent toward him, drawn by invisible currents. The acolytes stiffened, suddenly aware of a greater power in the room. "Burning bright," Revan said quietly, "is impressive. It is also brief." Malak's eyes flashed. "You think you will last longer by denying yourself?" he asked. Revan's voice was calm. "I will last longer by mastering myself," he said. "And by mastering you if necessary." The words were not a threat spoken in anger. They were a statement of fact. Silence fell. Even Malak seemed to pause, as if hearing the weight beneath Revan's tone. Then Malak smiled again, and in that smile Revan saw something that made his stomach tighten. Not defiance. Decision. Malak stepped back into the shadow, arms crossing, eyes fixed on Revan with a patience that felt wrong on him. "Teach them," he said. "Fill their heads with caution. I'll take the ones who prefer truth." "Day." Revan did not respond. He dismissed the acolytes with a gesture. They rose, filing out, whispering. Some glanced at Malak with admiration. Some looked at Revan with devotion. The fracture was already forming. When they were alone, Malak's voice dropped. "You plan to rule the forge," he said. Revan's mask did not move. "I plan to control it," he said. Malak's jaw clicked softly. "Control," he echoed. "Like you control everything." Revan's voice was quiet. "Like I must," he said. Malak stepped closer, and the tomb's red light made his scars look like fresh wounds. "Then remember," he whispered, "that control is a fragile thing. It breaks when someone stronger squeezes." He turned and walked away, cloak trailing like a shadow. Revan watched him go, and the ancient Sith statues seemed to loom closer, as if listening. In the Force, Revan felt the future tighten like a noose. Malak chose his conspirators carefully. Not the loudest, not the most fanatical. Fanatics were useful, but they were also predictable, and predictable men made predictable mistakes. He wanted men who had served under Revan long enough to admire him, and long enough to resent him. Men who had watched Revan command fleets with effortless certainty and wondered why they were still captains instead of kings. In the engineering bay, the air was thick with steam and metal dust. Technicians moved between open panels and exposed conduits, their faces hidden behind masks, their hands stained black. They looked less like engineers and more like smiths in a lord's forge, hammering at machines that would decide wars. Malak stood over an anvil-like console where a holographic model of Revan's flagship rotated. The ship was a monstrous thing, rebuilt from captured hulls and reinforced with Sith modifications. It was also, Malak knew, vulnerable. Everything was vulnerable when you understood where it had been patched. A technician, broad-shouldered, scarred, eyes wary, bowed his head. "You asked for structural reports," he said. Malak's gaze did not leave the hologram. "I asked for weaknesses," he corrected. The technician hesitated, then spoke carefully. "The flagship's forward shield array is tied into the main reactor conduit," he said. "It was expedient. Repairs after Malachor. It holds, but if the conduit is overloaded, it will cascade," Malak finished. His mouth curled. "How much overload?" The technician swallowed. "A targeted strike," he said. "Or an internal surge. Something that forces the system to compensate too fast." Malak's metal jaw clicked softly, pleased. "Can you make it happen?" he asked. The technician's eyes flicked up. Fear, recognition, temptation. "That would sabotage the flagship," he said, voice tight. "That would be Sith," Malak said. The technician's throat bobbed. "Revan," he began. Malak's gaze snapped to him. The air in the bay seemed to tighten, pressure building behind Malak's stare. "Revan is a master," Malak said quietly. "He is not a god. The Sith way is ascent." The technician's lips pressed together. He looked around. No one else listened openly, but Malak knew ears were everywhere. He knew rumor moved faster than droids. "I can create a failsafe," the technician said at last. "A maintenance protocol, something that looks harmless. If activated, it forces the shield array to draw too much power." Malak nodded. "Do it," he said. The technician hesitated again. "If it fails," he whispered, "it could kill everyone on the bridge." Malak's smile was thin. "Then it will be very convincing," he said. He turned his attention back to the hologram, tracing the ship's outline with his finger. The projection shimmered under his touch, as if he could crush it. He thought of Revan's control, his caution, his endless insistence on discipline. Malak did not hate discipline. He hated being disciplined. In the Force, Malak felt the dark side coil around him, warm and eager. It did not judge. It did not warn. It only offered. He left the engineering bay without looking back. Behind him, the technicians bent over their work like men, forging a dagger for their own king, hands steady despite the trembling in their hearts. Malak walked the corridor, cloak whispering against the walls. Crew members bowed as he passed, some out of fear, some out of devotion. Devotion grew like mold in darkness, quiet, persistent. He paused at a viewport where he could see the fleet drifting beyond. Ships glimmered, engines pulsing faintly. Revan's flagship dominated them all, a dark leviathan. Malak placed his hand against the glass. "Soon," he whispered. The reflection in the viewport showed his scarred face and metal jaw, and behind his eyes something bright and hungry moved. He had once believed he was Revan's right hand. Now he wanted the hand, and the throne it held. The first strike was meant to be clean. A shipyard above a blue-green world, an outer rim refueling hub the Republic used to support patrols. It was not Corasont. It was not even a core world. It was a small thing, the kind of target senators forgot existed until it burned. But Revan chose it deliberately. Small targets fell quickly. Small victories built momentum. Momentum carried fleets. They emerged from hyperspace like wolves from fog. Republic defense platforms opened fire immediately, bright bolts streaking through space. Sith ships answered with heavier cannons, their fire dark and relentless. The shipyard's docking arms, long, skeletal structures, shuddered as explosions tore into them. Debris spun away like shattered bone. On the bridge of Revan's flagship, the air was calm. Officers moved with disciplined speed. Voices clipped. No one panicked. Revan's presence shaped them. He did not shout. He did not rage. He simply watched the battle unfold, as if reading a familiar text. "Suppress the platforms," he said. "Do not destroy the central ring. We want the dock intact." The captain hesitated. "My lord," she said, "the Republic fighters will be dealt with," Revan said, and his gaze flicked to the tactical display. "Launch interceptors. Focus on their command ship. Break their coordination." Orders snapped out. Sith fighters poured from hangars, sleek and predatory. They swarmed the Republic's smaller craft, cutting through them with disciplined brutality. Malak stood to the side, hands clasped behind his back in mimicry of Revan's posture. But where Revan's stillness was control, Malak's was restraint forced upon a beast. "This is tedious," Malak muttered. Revan did not look at him. "It's necessary," he said. Malak's jaw clicked. "We could have simply shattered the ring and left them choking in vacuum," he said. "Fear spreads faster when it's spectacular. And fear breeds resistance," Revan replied. "We need worlds to surrender, not to martyr themselves." Malak snorted. "You sound like a politician." Revan's voice remained calm. "I sound like someone who plans to win," he said. The Republic command ship, a cruiser with the Republic insignia still bright, attempted to break away, engines flaring. Revan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Now," he said. A Sith destroyer fired a concentrated beam that punched through the cruiser's engines. The cruiser lurched, trailing fire spinning slowly. Revan watched it, feeling the force ripple with panic from the ship's crew. He could have reached out, could have crushed them, could have made their fear his music. He did not. He let them live. Survivors told stories. Stories did his work for him. A young officer turned toward him, eyes bright. "The ring is ours," she said. Revan nodded. "Boarding parties," he ordered. "Take control. Secure the shipyard's schematics. We will use their own infrastructure." No. The battle moved toward its end. Republic fighters fled or burned. Defense platforms went dark. The shipyard hung wounded but intact. Malak watched, expression unreadable. Underneath his calm, Revan could feel the tension, like a storm gathering behind a horizon. Revan turned slightly, just enough to see Malak in the edge of his vision. "You have something to say," he said. Malak's eyes flicked to him. "Do I?" he asked. Revan's voice was quiet. "Your silence is loud," he said. Malak's metal jaw clicked softly. "I was thinking," he said, "how easily this could all be yours. If you stop pretending you care what survives." Revan's gaze sharpened. "And I was thinking," he said, "how easily this could all be ruined. If you stopped pretending you can be patient." Malak's smile was thin. "Perhaps," he said. On the tactical display, boarding parties latched onto the shipyard. The Republic's last defenders surrendered quickly, seeing no hope. Revan watched their surrender with the same calm he watched their resistance. He did not hate them. Hatred was messy. He simply used them. Malak's gaze shifted to a smaller symbol on the display. His own ships, positioned slightly behind the main line as if held in reserve. Revan noticed, but did not comment. Malak often held his forces back, eager to strike at the decisive moment. Revan's instincts murmured, a faint warning. He listened. He always listened. The warning did not feel like the unknown darkness out beyond the rim. It felt closer. Familiar. Personal. Revan's hand tightened behind his back. He did not yet know the exact shape of Malak's blade, but he could feel the edge being honed. Malak did not announce betrayal with a roar. He did it with a whisper. On his bridge, red emergency lights glowed low, turning every face into a mask. His officers stood in disciplined ranks, but their eyes betrayed them, some shining with excitement, some wide with fear. The shipyard battle had given Malak exactly what he wanted. Distraction. Chaos outside, attention focused outward. Revan's flagship committed, shields strained by battle. And deep within the flagship systems, a failsafe waiting like a poison seed. Malak stood before his tactical display, fingers resting lightly on the edge. The hologram showed the fleet's formation. Revan's flagship at the center, dominant, vulnerable. A lieutenant, a thin man with cold eyes, leaned closer. "All ships are in position," he murmured. "If we do this, there is no return." Malak's metal jaw clicked softly. "There was no return the day we chose to stop listening to the Jedi," he said. The lieutenant swallowed. "And the fleet?" he asked. "Some will not follow." Malak's eyes burned. "Then they will burn with him," he said. He lifted his hand. On the holodisplay, his ship's icons flashed. Weapons powered. Targeting locks shifted, away from the Republic's broken defenses, away from the shipyard, toward the center of their own formation. Toward Revan. Malak's voice was calm. "Fire," he said. Outside the viewport, Sith warships turned like black beasts, cannon ports opening. Turbolaser fire erupted, brilliant, savage, lancing through space toward the flagship. For a heartbeat, the universe seemed to pause, as if even the stars held their breath. Then the first volley struck. Revan's flagship's shields flared, brilliant blue, absorbing the blow. But the shields were already strained from battle. The second volley hit harder, and the shield array shuddered. Malak's lieutenant's voice shook. "Impact confirmed," he said. "Shields at 70%. Malak watched, expression almost serene. "Again," he said. Another volley. Another. The flagship's shields flickered, struggling to compensate. And then the sabotage bloomed. On the hologram, a red warning symbol flared on the flagship. Its forward shield array drew too much power, trying to adapt. The reactor conduit overloaded. For a moment, the flagship's shields flared brighter, then collapsed like a snapped shield wall. Malak exhaled slowly. "There," he whispered. His ships fired again. Without shields, the flagship's hull took the blows directly. Armor plates exploded. Sections of the superstructure tore away, spinning into the void like broken limbs. Fires blossomed along the ship's spine. On Malak's bridge, some officers flinched at the sight. The flagship had been a symbol. Watching it bleed felt like watching a god die. Malak did not flinch. His hunger steadied him. A new icon appeared on the hologram, Revan's command transmission. It flashed, trying to hail the fleet. Malak gestured. "Jam it," he said. The lieutenant's fingers flew. The transmission flickered, distorted. Revan's voice broke into static. Malak leaned toward the comm console. "Open a channel," he ordered. To him, only him. The lieutenant hesitated. "Hell." "Do it," Malak snapped. A channel opened. Malak's voice carried across the void, across the burning hull, into the flagship's wounded heart. Revan? Malak said. There was a pause. Static crackled. Then Revan's voice came through, calm even now, edged with something like disappointment. Malak, Revan said. You always thought you could control everything, Malak said softly. Even me. Revan's voice did not rise. And you always thought you could make hunger into destiny, he replied. Malak's metal jaw clicked. Destiny is taken, he said. Not discussed. Another volley hit the flagship. The ship shuddered, fire spreading. Revan's voice remained steady. If you kill me, he said, you will inherit what I've been holding back. Malak laughed, and the sound was sharp as broken glass. Your secrets, he said. Let them die with you. Revan's pause was brief. Then you will learn, he said, the hard way. Malak's eyes narrowed. I learn by winning, he said. He cut the channel. On his bridge, the officers watched the flagship burn. Some looked sick. Some looked exhilarated. Malak felt only satisfaction. This is the Sith way, he said, voice carrying. The strong take what they deserve. He turned his gaze to the fleet icons still loyal to Revan. Ships whose captains had not been part of his council. Ships that might resist. Signal them, Malak ordered. Tell them their master is dead. The lieutenant's throat bobbed. And if he isn't, he whispered. Malak's smile was cruel. Then we make him wish he was, he said. Outside, the flagship continued to break apart, pieces tumbling in fire. In the void, there was no sound. Only light, only destruction. Malak watched his betrayal unfold like a coronation. He did not yet know what survived in the wreckage. He did not yet know that Revan's mask was not the only thing that could hide a face. The bridge of the flagship became a storm of fire and metal. Alarms screamed. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The floor bucked beneath Revan's boots as the ship shuddered under repeated impacts. An officer, face streaked with blood, stumbled toward him. My lord, she shouted over the chaos. We're taking fire from our own ships. Revan's mind moved faster than the alarms. He had felt the shift in the force the moment Malak gave the order, like a blade sliding between ribs. He had known in that heartbeat that Malak's patience had never been patience. It had been preparation. Status, Revan said, voice calm. The forward shields collapsed, the officer gasped. Reactor conduit overload. Someone sabotaged. Revan's gaze flicked to the tactical display, flickering and half dead. Malak's ships were highlighted in crimson, their fire raking the flagship with methodical cruelty. Revan felt anger surge. Not for the betrayal itself. He had expected betrayal eventually. Sith apprentices always tried. Anger because Malak had chosen his moment poorly. Anger because Malak had struck without understanding the larger threat. The ship lurched again. A section of ceiling tore free, falling toward the command pit. A young navigator froze, eyes wide. Revan lifted his hand. The debris halted midair, suspended by invisible force. The metal groaned as if resisting. Revan's fingers tightened, and the chunk of ceiling shattered into smaller pieces, scattering harmlessly away. The navigator stared at him, breathless. Revan did not look at her. He was already moving, cloak swirling toward the comm console. The console was half melted. Sparks danced across it like angry insects. Revan slammed his hand down, forcing power through it. Static hissed. Then Malak's voice came through, smooth and cruel. Revan.ta. Revan's reply had been calm. It had cost him something to keep it that way. He could have roared. He could have demanded. He could have begged. Begging was for the Republic. When Malak cut the channel, Revan stood in the smoke, listening to the hiss of damaged circuits. Outside the viewport, space burned with light as ships fired on ships. A captain, older, gray-haired, eyes fierce, staggered up from the floor. "We should return fire," he shouted. "We can still break his line." "We don't have time," Revan said. The captain blinked, shocked by the coldness. "My lord." Revan turned toward him, and though the mask hid his expression, the Force carried his intent like a blade. "If we stay," Revan said, "we die. And then Malak will take the forge without understanding it. He will feed it his rage until it devours him and everything we've built." The captain's mouth opened, then shut. He had followed Revan through war and darkness. He knew when Revan spoke of larger threats, it was not superstition. It was calculation. Revan's gaze swept the bridge. Crew members fought to contain fires, to reroute power, to keep life support from collapsing. Fear pulsed through them like a heartbeat. Revan spoke into that fear, shaping it. "All hands," he said, voice amplified through the failing comm system. "Evacuation protocol. Code Black." A murmur of disbelief. Evacuation meant surrender. Evacuation meant admitting weakness. Revan's voice sharpened. "This ship is a symbol," he said. "Symbols can burn. You will live to build new ones." The ship shook again. A blast tore through the aft section. The bridge lights flickered, then died, leaving only emergency glow. Dim red that painted every face like blood. Revan turned to the officer at navigation. "Plot a micro-jump," he ordered. "We need cover." The officer's hands shook. "Hyperdrive is damaged," she said. "And Malak's jamming." Revan stepped closer, placing a gloved hand on her shoulder. The touch was firm, grounding. "You will do it," he said. Her eyes met the mask. She swallowed, then nodded, fingers moving. Revan turned to the captain. "Gather those you trust," he said. "Not those who worship me. Those who can think." "No." The captain hesitated. "How many?" he asked. Revan's gaze flicked to the burning viewport, to the ships turning against them. "Enough," he said. He moved toward the bridge exit. A trooper stepped in his path, face pale. "My lord," the trooper said, voice cracking. "Malak, he says you're dead." Revan paused. Smoke curled around his mask. "Then let him believe it," he said. They fought their way through corridors that had become hell. Fires licked along walls. Emergency shutters slammed down, sealing off sections. Crew members ran, coughing, dragging wounded. In one corridor, a group of officers argued, voices sharp, desperate. One shouted, "We should surrender to Malak." Another yelled, "We should ram his ship." Revan passed them without stopping. They fell silent, as if a shadow had swallowed their words. He reached the hangar bay where shuttles waited. The bay was half in darkness, lit by flickering emergency lamps. Sparks rained from damaged conduits. A shuttle's hull smoked. Malak's voice echoed faintly through the ship's internal comms, distorted by damage. "All loyal ships," it said, "stand down. Revan is dead. Swear to me and live." "Nani, Dama, Eben, Teberbita." Revan listened for a heartbeat, then turned away. He climbed into a shuttle with a handful of chosen, captain, officers, troopers, engineers who understood the forge better than anyone else. As the ramp closed, Revan felt the ship tremble again, a deep shudder that ran through the hull like a dying breath. He sat in the shuttle's dark interior, the red emergency lights painting his mask. Around him, people breathed hard, eyes wide, clutching weapons and data slates like lifelines. The captain leaned close. "Where do we go?" he asked. Revan looked at the small viewport where the burning flagship loomed outside, breaking apart in silent fire. "Into the dark," Revan said. The shuttle launched. It slipped away from the dying flagship like a secret leaving a corpse. Behind them, Malak's ships continued firing, eager to make sure no ghost remained. Revan felt their fire in the Force like heat against his back. He did not look back. The shuttle's engines strained, pushing it through a storm of debris. Chunks of the flagship spun past, armor plates, shattered antennas, pieces of hull with scorch marks still glowing. A dead fighter drifted by, cockpit cracked, a frozen hand visible inside. The void was full of small tragedies. Inside the shuttle, no one spoke. Words felt too fragile. Breath sounded loud in the tight cabin. Revan sat still, hands resting on his knees, cloak pooling around him. The mask stared forward, unblinking. Only the subtle tension in his posture revealed the effort of control. He could feel Malak's presence behind them in the Force, bright and hungry. Malak's triumph tasted like hot metal. It radiated, spilling over the fleet, seeking to bind captains to him through fear and awe. Revan felt loyalty too, faint threads connecting him to ships still uncertain, captains hesitating, crews confused. He could have reached out, could have pulled those threads, could have commanded them to follow him into exile. He did not. Those captains would be hunted. Their families would be threatened. Malak would not simply kill, he would make examples. If Revan demanded loyalty now, he would drag them into a war they were not prepared to fight. Better to let Malak take the fleet. Better to let the Empire fracture under Malak's impatience. Better, Revan thought grimly, to let Malak learn. The shuttle dropped into a micro-jump, a desperate lurch through hyperspace that lasted only seconds. When they emerged, space was emptier. The battle was behind them, a distant glow fading into darkness. The captain exhaled shakily. "We're clear," he whispered, as if afraid the universe would hear. Revan's voice was calm. "For now," he said. An engineer, face streaked with soot, clutched a data slate. "We have the forge coordinates," he said. "But if Malak controls the fleet, he will go there," Revan finished. The engineer swallowed. "Then we must stop him," he said, voice desperate. "We must warn the Republic, the Jedi." Revan's mask turned slightly. "No," he said. The engineer blinked. "No?" he repeated. Revan's voice was low. "If we warn the Republic," he said, "they will rush to the forge without understanding it. They will provoke what they cannot face. And Malak will still go, because he cannot resist. Then the forge will be a battlefield with 3 armies of fools." "No." The captain rubbed a hand over his face, leaving a streak of blood. "Then what do we do?" he asked. Revan's silence stretched. In that silence, the survivors' fear sharpened. They had escaped death, but escape without purpose felt like another kind of dying. Revan reached into his cloak and drew out a small object, a fragment of Rakatan crystal, etched with runes. It glowed faintly in the dim cabin light. "We build," Revan said. The engineer frowned. "Build what?" he asked. Revan's voice was steady. "A faction," he said. "A blade that can cut Malak's hand from the forge without handing it to the Republic." The captain stared at him. "With what resources?" he demanded. "We have 1 shuttle, a handful of people. Malak has fleets." Revan's mask faced him. "Malak has fleets," Revan agreed. "But Malak does not have patience. He does not have understanding. He does not have what I have." The captain's voice hardened. "And what is that?" he asked. Revan's hand closed around the crystal. "The truth," he said. The words sounded heavy in the small cabin. The engineer's eyes flicked nervously. "You keep saying truth," he said. "About something out there. Something bigger." Revan looked at the dark beyond the shuttle's viewport. Stars glittered, indifferent. Somewhere beyond them, the unknown regions waited, vast and silent. "Yes," Revan said. "There is something bigger." A trooper, young, face pale, whispered. "What is it?" He sounded like a child asking about monsters under a bed. Revan's voice was quiet. "I don't have a name for it," he said. "But I have felt it. It has felt us. It used the Mandalorians as a hammer. It will use Malak as another if we let it." "No." The captain's jaw tightened. "So we fight Malak," he said, "and we prepare for this thing." Revan nodded once. The engineer swallowed. "Where do we begin?" he asked. Revan closed his eyes behind the mask. In the Force, he reached outward, not toward Malak, but toward the scattered edges of the galaxy, to worlds forgotten by the Republic, to warlords and smugglers, to exiles and survivors of Malachor V who still carried scars in their souls. He felt them like distant embers. "We begin," Revan said, opening his eyes, "where the Republic does not look." The shuttle moved through space like a small wounded animal fleeing a larger predator. Its engines hummed softly, steadying. Behind them, Malak's new empire began to form around a lie. That Revan was dead. Revan let the lie spread. Lies could be useful. He had worn a mask long enough to know the value of what people believed. Malak stood on the bridge of what remained of Revan's flagship, surrounded by the smell of smoke and victory. The ship had not been fully destroyed. That had been the plan. Malak wanted the symbol broken, not erased. He wanted captains to see the flagship wounded, kneeling, proof that even Revan could bleed. He walked across the scorched deck toward the command throne. The chair was cracked, its armrests burned, but it still carried the imprint of Revan's rule. Malak paused, staring at it as if it were an enemy. Then he sat. The act sent a ripple through the officers gathered around. Some bowed immediately, eager. Some hesitated, eyes flicking nervously, as if expecting Revan's shadow to rise and drag Malak away. Malak let them watch him settle into the throne. He rested his hands on the armrests, metal jaw gleaming in the red emergency light. He looked like a warlord in a conquered keep, taking the Lord's chair while servants trembled. "Revan is dead," Malak said. The words fell into silence. No one challenged them. Challenging would require certainty, and certainty was rare in the aftermath of betrayal. A captain, one who had once laughed with Revan in war councils, swallowed hard. "We have not confirmed," he began. Malak's gaze snapped to him. The air seemed to tighten, pressure building. "You doubt?" Malak asked softly. The captain's eyes widened. "No," he said quickly. "Aye." Malak rose from the throne in a single smooth motion. He stepped down into the command pit, closing the distance. His hand lifted, fingers curling. The captain's throat seized. He gasped, hands clawing at his neck as if trying to pull away invisible chains. Malak leaned close. "Say it," he whispered. The captain's face turned red, then purple. "Revan is dead," he choked. Malak released him. The captain collapsed to the floor, coughing, eyes streaming. No one moved to help him. Malak straightened, gaze sweeping the bridge. "The Sith do not follow ghosts," he said. "We follow strength, and strength now sits here." He returned to the throne and sat again, slower this time, savoring. A lieutenant stepped forward and knelt, head bowed. "My lord," he said, voice trembling with devotion. "Command us." One by one, others followed, kneeling, bowing, swearing. Some did it out of fear. Some out of ambition. Malak accepted them all. He did not care why they knelt. He cared that they did. He gestured, and a hollow projection flared above the throne. The star forge, red and pulsing. It hovered like a crown. "We have a forge," Malak said. "With it, we will build a fleet the Republic cannot match. We will crush their shipyards, take their worlds, and break their Jedi." A murmur of approval ran through the bridge. The word crush always pleased soldiers. "And the ones who hesitate," Malak continued, voice sharpening, "will be given a choice. Kneel or burn." "No." The lieutenant looked up, eyes bright. "And if the Republic offers peace?" he asked. Malak laughed. "Peace is what the weak offer when they cannot win," he said. "We will take their peace and use it as a leash." He looked toward the viewport. In the distance, the wounded shipyard drifted, still burning. Republic survivors clung to life pods, tiny and helpless. Malak felt a momentary urge to wipe them out, just to prove a point. Then he dismissed it. He had larger prey now. He leaned back in the throne, letting the forge's red glow wash over him. He imagined ships pouring from it, endless. He imagined the Republic Senate on Corasont screaming in panic. He imagined Jedi Masters gathering in their bright chambers, realizing too late that their restraint had made them brittle. Most of all, he imagined Revan's mask, silent, cold, cracking under Malak's heel. A captain approached cautiously. "My lord," she said, "some ships did not respond to your signal. They fled, loyalists." Malak's eyes narrowed. "Names," he said. She hesitated. "We can compile." Malak's hand lifted slightly. The captain froze, fear sharp in her gaze. Malak smiled. "You will find them," he said. "You will hunt them, and you will bring me proof." The captain swallowed. "Yes, my lord." Malak's smile widened. Proof mattered. Proof fed fear. Fear fed loyalty. He looked at the forge projection again. Its red glow pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. In the Force, Malak felt something stir. Approval, distant and cold. He mistook it for destiny. He did not realize it was hunger smelling fresh meat. They found refuge on a moon so barren even smugglers avoided it. Its surface was gray rock and shallow craters, its sky thin and colorless. No cities glittered here. No patrol ships swept the horizon. Only silence and cold. Revan chose it because it was forgotten. They set up camp in the shadow of a broken ridge, using the shuttle as shelter and stacking crates like walls. A small fire burned in a metal brazier, more for comfort than heat. The survivors huddled close, cloaks pulled tight. Their faces looked older than their years. Revan stood apart, studying a star map spread on a crate. He had removed his mask for the first time since Malak's betrayal, letting the cold air bite his skin. His face was pale in the dim light, eyes dark with exhaustion. He looked less like a legend and more like a man who had carried too much. The captain approached cautiously. "You should rest," he said. Revan did not look up. "Rest is for those who can afford it," he replied. The captain's jaw tightened. "We're scattered," he said. "We have no fleet. We have no forge. Malak has everything." Revan's fingers traced the map. "Malak has ships," he said. "He does not have everything." The captain's voice rose, frustration cracking his discipline. "He has the Sith," he said. "He has fear. He has impatience," Revan cut in. His voice was sharp enough to stop the captain cold. Revan looked up, eyes glinting in firelight. "And impatience," he said, "is a weakness you can stab." The captain exhaled slowly. "With what?" he asked, quieter. Revan's gaze drifted to the survivors. Engineers, troopers, officers. People who had chosen him, or who had been chosen by circumstance. They were small, compared to Malak's fleets. But small things could be sharp. "With ghosts," Revan said. The captain frowned. "I don't understand." Revan's mouth tightened, not in anger but in memory. "The Republic forgets," he said. "It forgets the Outer Rim. It forgets the worlds it taxes and never protects. It forgets the veterans it discards. It forgets the people it calls criminals until it needs them." He tapped the map at a cluster of points far from the core. "We go here," he said. "To places where Malak's name is not yet law. Places where Revan is still rumor." The captain studied the map. Thought he... "Shh," he murmured. "Neutral ports." Revan nodded. "Warlords," he said. "Guilds, mercenaries, exiles." The captain's eyes narrowed. "You mean to build an army out of scum?" Revan's voice was quiet. "Scum," he said, "is often simply someone the Republic refused to save." The captain's expression softened, unwillingly. He had served under Revan long enough to know he meant it. An engineer approached, clutching a data slate. "We've checked the shuttle systems," he said. "We can make jumps, but fuel is limited. We'll need supplies." Revan nodded. "We'll take them," he said. The engineer hesitated. "From whom?" she asked. Revan's eyes flicked toward the dark horizon, where the moon's barren land stretched under a cold sky. "From those who hoard," he said. The captain's mouth tightened. "So we become raiders," he said. Revan's gaze returned to the map. "We become survivors," he corrected. He lifted his hand slightly, and the fire in the brazier flared, bending toward him. The survivors glanced up, startled. Revan let the flames settle again. "I did not want this," Revan said suddenly, voice low. The captain blinked. "Malak's betrayal?" he asked. Revan shook his head once. "No," he said. "The Sith, the Empire, the Forge." The engineer stared. "Then why?" she asked, voice trembling with the question everyone carried. Revan looked at them all. In the firelight, his face looked carved from fatigue. "Because the Republic is blind," he said. "Because the Jedi are proud. Because something out there is waiting for the galaxy to weaken itself." The captain's eyes narrowed. "You keep saying something," he said. "Tell us." Revan's jaw tightened. The truth tasted like poison. But these people had followed him into exile. They deserved more than riddles. He took a breath. "Out beyond the rim," Revan said, "there is an empire older than ours. A darkness that does not burn hot like Sith rage. It burns cold. It watches. It whispers. It sent the Mandalorians. It wanted the Republic tested. It wanted the Jedi distracted." The survivors went still. Even the fire seemed to dim. The engineer whispered, "How do you know?" Revan's eyes stared into the flame. "Because I felt it," he said. "Because it felt me. Because when the Forge woke, something answered." The captain swallowed. "And you think Malak will awaken it further?" he said. Revan nodded. "He will feed the Forge his hunger," he said. "He will build fleets. He will wage war. And in doing so, he will make the galaxy weaker." The engineer's hands shook. "Then we must stop him," she said. Revan's gaze sharpened. "Yes," he said. "We stop him. But we do not stop him for the Republic. We stop him because he is a sword pointed at the galaxy's throat by hands that will not hesitate to cut." The captain stared at him, fear and resolve mixing. "And after Malak?" he asked. Revan's voice dropped. "After Malak," he said, "we go back into the dark." Silence fell. The wind moaned over the ridge like distant voices. Revan lifted his mask from a crate. He held it for a moment, looking at the expressionless face. Then he put it back on. The legend returned, cold and unreadable. "Get ready," Revan said. "We move before Malak realizes the dead can still bite." On Corasont, the sky was always full of traffic, full of light, full of the hum of a city that believed itself the center of the galaxy. The Jedi Temple rose above it all, pale stone and clean lines, a fortress of serenity in a world that never stopped moving. Inside the council chamber, sunlight poured through tall windows, painting the floor in bright shapes. The air smelled faintly of polished stone and incense. It was meant to feel calm. It did not. The masters sat in a circle, robes draped, faces lined with worry they tried to hide. The war with the Mandalorians had ended, but peace had not followed. Reports of Revan's disappearance into the unknown regions had become reports of raids and defections, of Republic ships taken, of Jedi going dark. And now they had new reports. A hollow projector flickered in the center of the chamber, showing a battle in space. Sith ships firing on Sith ships, one massive flagship breaking apart. Vrook's face was tight with anger. "They destroy each other," he said, as if the words were an insult rather than a gift. "And yet we still bleed." Vandar's ears drooped slightly, his small face grave. If the Sith fracture," he murmured, "the Republic has a chance." Another master, older, eyes tired, shook his head. Or the Sith become two monsters instead of one, he said. Bastila stood before them, hands clasped. She was young compared to the masters, but her presence filled the chamber. Her eyes were steady, her posture disciplined. The force around her felt sharp, focused, like a blade honed to perfection. She listened as they argued. She did not interrupt. Patience was another form of strength. A master turned toward her. "You have read the reports," he said. "What do you sense?" Bastila took a breath. "Confusion," she said. "Fear and opportunity." Vrook's eyes narrowed. "Opportunity," he repeated. "You speak like a soldier." Bastila's gaze did not waver. "We are at war," she said, "whether we admit it or not." Vrook's mouth tightened. "Revan was a soldier," he said, bitterness sharpening the name. "And see what that path led to." Bastila's jaw tightened slightly. "Revan was also a Jedi," she said quietly. The chamber stilled. Speaking Revan's name aloud felt like touching a wound. Vandar's voice was gentle. "What do you propose, Bastila?" he asked. Bastila's hands tightened in her sleeves. "If the Sith are divided," she said, "we can strike where they are weakest. We can gather intelligence. We can identify which leader holds the greater threat." Vrook snorted. "Both are threats," he said. Bastila's eyes flashed. "Not equally," she said. "If one has control of whatever caused this, if one is reckless." A master leaned forward. "The reports mention a forge," he said, voice low. "A rumor. A station that builds ships." Dow. Bastila's breath caught. She had heard the rumor too, whispered by frightened officers and smugglers. The Star Forge. An ancient Rakatan machine. A myth that sounded too convenient to be false. "If it exists," Bastila said slowly, "we must find it before the Sith can use it fully." Vrook's gaze hardened. "And how do you intend to find a myth?" he asked. Bastila's voice was steady. "By following the Force," she said, "and by following the trail of the one who led the Sith to this point." Vrook's eyes narrowed. "You mean Revan?" he said. Bastila did not flinch. "Yes," she said. The word hung in the sunlight like dust. Vandar sighed softly. "To seek Revan," he murmured, "is to risk being drawn into his shadow." Bastila's expression tightened. "His shadow already covers the Republic," she said, "whether we seek him or not." A master's voice was cautious. "If Revan is truly dead," he said, "then we waste time." Bastila's gaze sharpened. "The Force does not feel like he is dead," she said. She did not know why she was certain, only that when she reached out, she felt a presence like a distant storm, not gone, not quiet. A storm did not vanish. It moved. Vrook's face darkened. "Your certainty worries me," he said. "Attachment." Bastila's voice cut sharper than she intended. "This is not attachment," she said. "This is awareness." Silence fell again. The masters exchanged glances. Vandar's voice was soft. "You have the gift of battle meditation," he said. "Your presence can turn fleets. You would be valuable in the field." Bastila nodded once. She knew. She had been trained like a weapon, praised for it, feared for it. She did not know if she liked being valuable. Vrook's voice was reluctant. "If we send you," he said, "you will not go alone." Bastila's eyes lifted. "Who?" she asked. Vrook's mouth tightened. "A strike team," he said. "Republic support. Jedi who can resist the Sith's influence." Bastila's gaze remained steady. "And if I find Revan?" she asked quietly. Vandar's expression softened. "Then you will do what the Force demands," he said. Bastila bowed her head slightly. The words sounded wise. They were also vague. The Force demanded many things. Sometimes it demanded sacrifice. Sometimes it demanded mercy. Sometimes it demanded lies. As she turned to leave the chamber, sunlight on her shoulders, Bastila felt the weight of Coruscant's endless city below. She felt the Republic's fear rising like smoke. She felt the Jedi's pride standing like stone. And somewhere far away, in a darkness beyond charts, she felt a storm moving, silent and vast. The Republic cruiser moved through the debris field with cautious grace, its engines humming softly. The wreckage of the battle lay scattered like bones, twisted hull plates, shattered fighters, frozen bodies drifting in silence. The void held the aftermath without judgment. Bastila stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the viewport. Her Jedi robes felt out of place among the Republic officers' uniforms, but no one dared comment. They treated her with the careful respect given to a dangerous ally. A captain, broad-shouldered, voice-controlled, gestured toward the display. "This is where the flagship broke apart," he said. "Our sensors picked up the engagement hours after it ended. There were no survivors we could recover." Bastila's gaze did not leave the wreckage. "No survivors you could recover?" she echoed softly. The captain's jaw tightened. "If Revan was aboard," he said. "Then?" Bastila lifted a hand slightly. He stopped. The captain swallowed his words as if they had turned to ash. Bastila stepped closer to the viewport. In the distance, a large chunk of hull drifted, its surface scorched. A Sith symbol was visible, burned into metal. The symbol looked less like an emblem and more like a brand. Bastila closed her eyes. The Force rose around her like a tide. She had learned to shape it in battle, to use it like a song that could steady allies and shatter enemies. Here, she did not shape. She listened. The wreckage whispered. Every death left an echo. The Force here was thick with them. Fear, pain, rage, betrayal. It was overwhelming. A chorus of broken voices. Bastila breathed through it, steadying herself. She reached deeper, searching for something specific. A presence. She felt Malak first. His signature was loud, rage and triumph, a sharp blaze that left scorched edges. He had been here, and he had reveled in it. Then beneath that blaze, she felt something else. Not gone. Not dead. A cold steadiness. A mind like a knife, held perfectly still. Revan die. Bastila's eyes snapped open. Her breath caught. The captain watched her, tense. "What is it?" he asked. Bastila's voice was quiet. "He was here," she said. The captain's brow furrowed. "Revan?" he asked, disbelief cracking his composure. Bastila nodded once. "And he is not dead," she said. A murmur ran through the bridge. Officers exchanged glances. Some looked afraid. Some looked relieved. The idea of Revan alive was both hope and terror. The captain swallowed. "How can you be sure?" he asked. Bastila's gaze returned to the wreckage. "Because the Force does not lie like men do," she said. Then she hesitated, because she knew that wasn't entirely true. The Force could be interpreted. It could be shaped. It could be misunderstood. But her certainty remained. "He escaped," she said. The captain's mouth tightened. "Then we should pursue," he said. "If he's wounded, if he's alone." Bastila turned toward him, and for a moment her youth fell away, replaced by something older. "If he escaped," she said, "then he wanted to." The captain stared at her. "You think he planned this?" he asked. Bastila's eyes hardened. "Revan plans everything," she said. "Even his own death." She looked back to the debris. In the Force, she felt the faint trace of Revan's path, like a thread pulled through darkness. It led away from the wreckage, away from Republic lanes, toward places the Republic did not watch. A lieutenant stepped forward, nervous. "What do we tell the Senate?" he asked. "That Revan survived? That the Sith are fighting each other?" The captain's jaw tightened. "We tell them whatever keeps them from panicking," he said. Bastila listened, and something inside her tightened. Politics. Lies. Fear. It was all a web, and she was being sent into it like a blade. She turned back to the viewport. The stars beyond were cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Revan moved through darkness, wounded but alive. Somewhere else, Malak gathered power like a fire gathering fuel. Bastila felt the pull between them, two storms moving toward collision. She did not know yet that she would be caught between them, but she felt, in the Force, that her life was already bending toward that point. The Outer Rim did not greet kings with ceremony. It greeted them with suspicion and blasters. Revan's first recruitment was not in a grand hall, but in a dockyard that smelled of fuel and cheap liquor. The station was a cluster of patched-together modules drifting above a shadowed planet. Its lights flickered. Its security was a handful of mercenaries who looked like they would sell their own mothers for the right price. Revan walked through its corridors with a small escort, cloak drawn, mask gleaming faintly in the dim light. People pressed themselves against walls as he passed. Some bowed instinctively. Most simply stared. In a briefing room lit by a single hanging lamp, a group of smugglers and mercenaries waited. They sat around a scarred metal table, hands resting near holsters. Their faces were hard, lined by years of betrayal and survival. A smuggler with a shaved head leaned back in his chair. "So," he said, voice rough, "you're the ghost." Revan did not sit. He stood at the head of the table, looking at them one by one. "I'm real," he said. Another man, a mercenary with a cybernetic eye, snorted. "Malak says you're dead," he said. "So either you're a ghost, or Malak's a liar." Revan's voice was calm. "Both can be true," he said. A woman with tattoos up her neck narrowed her eyes. "Why are we here?" she asked. "If you're Sith, you can just take this station." Revan's gaze held hers. "I could," he said. "And then you'd all run, or you'd all fight. Either way, I'd waste time." The smuggler barked a laugh. "Time," he said. A Sith Lord worried about time. That's new. Revan reached into his cloak and placed a small stack of credit chips on the table. They clinked softly. The mercenaries' eyes flicked to them despite themselves. "I'm not here to threaten you," Revan said. "I'm here to offer you work." The cybernetic-eyed mercenary leaned forward. "Work?" he repeated. "For you?" Revan nodded. "For me," he said. "Against Malak." The room went still. Even the smuggler's grin faded. The tattooed woman's voice was cautious. "Malak has fleets," she said. "You have, what? A shuttle and a story." Revan's voice did not change. "I have targets," he said. "Supply lines, convoys, shipyards that Malak will use. Malak's empire is big, but it is not stable. It will bleed if cut in the right places." "No." The smuggler's gaze sharpened. "And what do we get?" he asked. Revan's answer was immediate. "Power," he said. "Protection. A place in what comes next." The cybernetic-eyed mercenary laughed harshly. "What comes next?" he echoed. "Another war?" Revan's mask tilted slightly. "Yes," he said. "A war you cannot imagine." The tattooed woman's eyes narrowed. "That sounds like a threat," she said. Revan's voice softened, but it did not warm. "It's a warning," he said. He placed something else on the table. A lightsaber hilt, black and simple. The mercenary stared. A lightsaber was not just a weapon. It was a symbol. It meant Jedi. It meant Sith. It meant the Force. The smuggler's voice dropped. "You're offering us that?" he asked. Revan shook his head. "I'm offering you a choice," he said. "Help me, and you live. Refuse, and Malak will eventually come here. He will take what he wants. He will burn what resists. He will not negotiate." The mercenaries exchanged glances. They had heard stories of Malak, of worlds bombarded, of captains executed for hesitation. Those stories carried farther than any Republic propaganda. The cybernetic-eyed mercenary leaned back. chewing the inside of his cheek. "You're using fear," he said. Revan's voice was quiet. "Fear is honest," he said. "It tells you what you already know." The smuggler looked at the credit chips again. "And if we say yes?" he asked. Revan's gaze fixed on him. "Then you will do raids," he said. "Quick strikes. You will vanish before Malak can respond. You will hurt him where he least expects. And in return, you will have my protection." The tattooed woman's laugh was sharp. "Protection from what?" she asked. "Malak's fleets." Revan's voice dropped. "From the future," he said. The room fell silent again. Outside, the station's hull groaned as if tired. The smuggler's grin returned, slower this time. "You talk like you've seen the end of the galaxy," he said. Revan's mask did not move. "I have seen the beginning of it," he replied. The mercenaries stared, uncertain. They wanted to believe this was just another power play, another warlord offering credits. But something about Revan's stillness unsettled them. He did not beg. He did not threaten with bluster. He spoke like someone describing weather. The cybernetic-eyed mercenary finally shrugged. "Fine," he said. "I'll take your credits. I'll shoot at Malak's ships. I don't care about Sith politics." Revan nodded. "You don't need to," he said. "You only need to care about living." The smuggler leaned forward, tapping the table. "And if Malak catches us?" he asked. Revan's voice was calm. "Then you die," he said. The bluntness made them flinch. Revan did not soften it. Death was part of the bargain. The Outer Rim understood honest contracts. The tattooed woman sighed, then nodded. "All right," she said. "We'll bleed him." Revan's gaze swept the room, memorizing faces, assessing resolve. These were not saints. They were not heroes. They were survivors. Survivors could be shaped. He picked up the lightsaber hilt and slipped it back into his cloak. "Then we begin," he said. As he left the room, the mercenaries' voices rose behind him. Arguments, plans, greed. Revan listened without turning. Greed was predictable. Predictability could be used. Outside, in the station's dim corridor, the engineer from the shuttle approached. "This is what we are now," she whispered. "Hiring criminals." Revan's voice was quiet. "We are hiring reality," he said. He looked out through a viewport at the shadowed planet below. The Outer Rim was ugly, scarred, neglected. It was also free in ways Corasont could never be. And in that freedom, Revan began to build a knife. Malak learned quickly that fear was easiest to spread when it had a face. A world in the mid-rim refused to pledge. It was not a strong world, not a vital one. It was simply stubborn, ruled by a governor who believed the Republic would come to save him. Malak did not bother to correct that belief with diplomacy. He arrived with 3 warships and a message: kneel or burn. The governor stalled. He asked for terms. He demanded proof of Malak's authority. He insisted the Republic Senate would intervene. Malak laughed. From orbit, he watched the planet turn beneath him, its cities glittering at night like clusters of jewels. He imagined them as candles waiting for his breath. "Give them 1 hour," Malak said. His lieutenant hesitated. "My lord," he said, "we could land troops, take the capital, the shipyards." Malak's metal jaw clicked. "I am not here for their shipyards," he said. "I am here for their lesson." The hour passed. The governor sent another message, still pleading, still proud. Malak gave the order. Turbolasers fired. Light lanced downward. The planet's upper atmosphere flared, glowing. Then the city below erupted, buildings collapsing, streets turning to fire. The night became dawn made of flame. On Malak's bridge, some officers looked away. Some watched with fascination. Malak watched with calm satisfaction. "Broadcast it," he said. "To every world in the sector." The lieutenant swallowed. "Yes, my lord." Malak leaned forward, eyes reflecting the fire. "This is what hesitation earns," he murmured. He did not know that Revan's new knife was already moving. On a stolen freighter disguised as a merchant vessel, Revan watched the broadcast in silence. The image flickered on a small screen. Civilians running, fire raining, screams unheard in the vacuum of space. The mercenaries he had hired watched too, faces pale. The tattooed woman swore softly. "He's insane," she whispered. Revan's mask stared at the screen. He felt the deaths in the Force like a wave of pain, sharp enough to taste. He did not flinch. He could not afford to flinch. But something inside him tightened. The engineer beside him whispered, "This is what you warned us about," she said. "His hunger." Revan's voice was quiet. "Yes," he said. The smuggler, shaved head, eyes hard, looked at Revan. "So what now?" he asked. "We hit him?" Revan's gaze remained on the screen. "Not here," he said. "Not yet." The smuggler's mouth tightened. "People are dying," he snapped. Revan's mask turned toward him. "More will die if we strike blindly," he said. The smuggler glared. "You sound like a Jedi," he said, contempt and fear mixed. Revan did not answer. He turned back to the screen, watching fire bloom across the city like a cruel flower. In the Force, he felt Malak's presence, bright, triumphant, feeding on terror. The more Malak burned, the more the dark side surged around him like a storm. And beneath that storm, Revan felt something else. Faint, distant, cold. Approval. Revan's stomach tightened. The ancient presence was watching Malak's brutality like a man watching a dog learn to bite. Revan shut off the screen. Darkness filled the freighter's small cabin. "We strike," Revan said. The mercenaries leaned in, hungry for revenge, for pay, for purpose. Revan's voice remained calm. "We don't strike his warships," he said. "Not yet. We strike his fuel convoys. We strike his supply caches. We make his fleet slow. We make his commanders nervous." "Nein." The tattooed woman frowned. "That won't stop bombardments," she said. Revan's mask tilted slightly. "It will when his ships cannot reach worlds fast enough to punish them," he said. The smuggler's jaw worked. "And if he retaliates?" he asked. Revan's voice was cold. "He will," he said. "And every retaliation will show the galaxy what he is." The engineer's eyes widened. "You're letting him?" she began. Revan cut her off. "I am not letting him," he said. "I am using him." The words tasted bitter. Using Malak's cruelty as a weapon against Malak felt like poisoning a well to kill the man drinking from it, knowing others would drink too. But Revan had seen the alternative. Malak with a forge, and no opposition. Malak crushing the Republic quickly, leaving the galaxy weak and unprepared for what waited beyond. Revan's voice softened, almost a whisper. "Every world that sees him burn cities will hate him," he said. "And hatred is a resource." The smuggler stared at him unsettled. "You're colder than he is," he muttered. Revan did not deny it. "Coldness was what kept you from drowning when the galaxy turned to fire." Outside the freighter, stars drifted. Somewhere out there, Malak's ships moved like predators, confident. Revan's knife moved too, hidden in shadow. And far beyond both, in the deep dark, that no chart dared touch, something ancient listened to the screams and smiled without a face. Revan chose solitude the way some men chose alcohol, because it quieted the noise. On an asteroid carved hollow by ancient hands, he found a shrine the Rakata had left behind. It was small compared to their temples on Lihan, but it carried the same cold weight. Stone columns rose from the floor, cracked and frosted, their ruins faintly glowing in the dark. The air smelled of dust and old metal. Revan knelt in the center, cloak spread around him like a shadow. He had removed his mask and placed it beside him on the stone. Without it, his face looked almost vulnerable. Lines of fatigue, eyes that had seen too much. His hands rested on his knees, palms open. A small fire burned in a bowl nearby, its flame steady despite the thin air. It was not heat he needed. It was focus. He closed his eyes and reached into the Force. The galaxy opened beneath him like a vast sea. He felt Malak, bright, burning, expanding. He felt the Republic, fractured, fearful. He felt the Jedi, still proud, still trying to understand a war they had refused to prevent. He felt Bastila too, though he did not know her name yet. Her presence was sharp and bright, a note of clarity amid chaos, moving toward him like a blade drawn from a sheath. And beyond all of them, he felt the deep dark. It was not a storm like Malak. It was not a wound like Malachor. It was a cold, patient pressure, as if the universe itself leaned close to listen. Revan's breath slowed. He let himself sink deeper, past the surface currents of fear and ambition, into the older layers. Images rose unbidden. A throne in darkness, not like Malak's stolen chair, but something vast and ancient, carved from shadow and silence. A figure seated there, indistinct, its shape shifting, as if the mind could not hold it. Around it, legions in armor older than the Republic, marching without sound. Ships like knives slipping through hyperspace lanes that did not exist on any map. Revan's jaw tightened. The image shifted. He saw Malak again, standing before the forge, feeding it rage. He saw ships pouring out, endless. He saw Malak smiling, believing himself king. Then he saw the shadow behind Malak's smile, watching, approving, waiting to claim what Malak built. Revan's hands clenched slightly. The fire in the bowl flared, then steadied. "You cannot have him," Revan whispered into the dark. The Force did not answer with words. It answered with sensation. Cold amusement, like a blade's edge pressed lightly against skin. Revan felt the presence consider him as if tasting him. Not with hunger like Malak's, but with curiosity. Assessment. He forced his mind to remain steady. Fear was a signal. Panic was surrender. "I will not let you use my galaxy," Revan said softly. The dark pressed closer. For a moment, Revan's vision filled with a vast emptiness. Stars swallowed, light choked. He tasted despair. An old, deep despair that did not burn hot. It froze. Revan's breath hitched. His heart pounded once, hard. Then he remembered Malachor Vaw, the scream of a dying planet, the sudden silence afterward. He remembered the faces of soldiers who had followed him because they believed he could save them. He remembered the Jedi Council's refusal to act until it was too late. He remembered that he had chosen this path because the other paths led to failure. Revan steadied himself. The dark receded slightly as if intrigued. In that retreat, Revan felt something else. An echo, faint and strange. A sense that the presence had known him before, or had known men like him, and had seen them fall. That it expected him to fall too. Revan opened his eyes. The shrine's runes glowed faintly. Frost clung to stone. His mask lay beside him, blank and waiting. He picked up the mask and held it in his hands, staring at the expressionless face. It had been his shield, his symbol, his lie. It had allowed him to be what the galaxy needed. He put it on. The coldness returned, controlled. The legend resumed. Revan stood, cloak settling around him. He looked at the fire one last time, then extinguished it with a gesture, leaving the shrine in darkness. He did not leave with peace. He left with purpose sharpened by dread. Outside, the stars waited, indifferent, endless. Somewhere among them, Malak built an empire on betrayal and fire. Somewhere among them, the Republic gathered its courage too slowly. Somewhere among them, a young Jedi with a sharp presence moved toward a collision she did not yet understand. And beyond all of them, in the deep dark that pressed against the edges of reality, something ancient watched the galaxy weaken itself, and waited for the moment it could step forward and claim the ashes. Revan stepped into his shuttle's shadowed corridor. He had lost a fleet. He had lost an apprentice. He had lost the illusion that control could prevent betrayal. But he had not lost his will. And as the shuttle's engines warmed, humming like a low growl, Revan made a vow without ceremony, without witnesses, without comfort. If the galaxy had to be forged into something strong enough to survive what was coming, then he would be the hammer. Even if the hammer broke his own hands,